The Utah Department of Public Safety flies helicopters, mostly for the same reasons any state does: search and rescue, wildland fire spotting, occasional traffic assist. On this particular morning, they were doing something a little more unusual. They were helping the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources count bighorn sheep in a remote canyon in the southeastern part of the state. This is standard, quiet, government work. On the way home, they spotted something on the ground. At first, they thought it was a piece of metal debris, old mining equipment maybe. There's a lot of it in that part of Utah, but as the helicopter came around and hovered lower, the shape sharpened. It was not debris. It was a three-sided pillar of polished stainless steel, standing perfectly upright in a slot canyon that had no road, no trail, and no obvious way to reach on foot. They set the helicopter down. 2 officers got out. They walked over to it. Then, they got in close enough to touch it. The monolith stood roughly 3 meters tall, about twice the height of a person. It was hollow. It was flush against the ground, with no visible fastening. It was made of sheet metal that had been folded, cut, and welded by somebody with real skill. The seams were flush and clean. The edges were smooth. This was not made by an amateur, and it was not something anyone had permission to put on federal land. The Bureau of Land Management, which oversees that stretch of canyon, released a statement almost immediately after Utah DPS posted the helicopter footage. The statement noted that the structure was illegally installed on public land. What the statement did not say, because the BLM did not know, was who had installed it, or when, or how they had gotten it into a canyon with no vehicle access. Best guess timeline based on satellite imagery. The monolith went in sometime between August 2015 and October 2016. That's a 5-year window during which someone had transported a large, polished, custom-fabricated sculpture into a remote canyon, installed it flush to the rock, and left. No one had noticed for at least 4 years. On the night of November 27th, 9 days after the DPS helicopter footage went viral around the world, 4 residents of the Utah town of Moab drove out to the canyon. They arrived after dark. They dismantled the monolith, and then they drove away with it in the bed of a pickup truck. Their names are known. One of them is a professional slackliner and base jumper. Their stated reason was environmental. They were concerned about the traffic the monolith was drawing to the fragile desert ecosystem. What they did not do was say who put it there in the first place. In the weeks and months after the Utah discovery, similar monoliths began appearing around the world. Romania, California, the Isle of Wight, the UK, Nevada. Some were clearly copycats, some were more sophisticated, but none of them, and no artist, and no group, has ever publicly claimed the original. The BLM's file on the incident is still open. No installation permit was ever filed. No sculptor has come forward. 4 people took the monolith down, and none of them know where it is now. The man who owned the pickup truck says it left his possession the next day. Whoever originally put a 3-meter stainless steel monolith into a Utah slot canyon between 2015 and 2020 has never spoken publicly about it. The Utah Department of Public Safety helicopter footage remains, 6 years later, the only official record of the object standing where it stood. Everything else about it, who made it, why, how they installed it, and where it went after Moab, is unresolved. Christmas morning, 2020, Nashville, Tennessee, 6:14 a.m. The streets of downtown are as empty as they get all year. It is a Friday, and it is Christmas Day, and it is barely dawn. Metropolitan Nashville Police Officer Michael Sipos is one of 6 officers dispatched to 2nd Avenue after 911 receives a call about shots fired. Sipos had been issued his body camera 3 days earlier. He had not gotten around to fully learning it. He turned it on when he stepped out of the patrol car, more or less on instinct, and it stayed on for the next hour. What his camera recorded is the reason we know anything about what happened next. There were no shots fired. What there was in the middle of the street was a large white recreational vehicle, parked, engine off, no driver visible, and a female voice broadcasting from a loudspeaker on top of the RV on a loop at conversational volume. The voice was telling the neighborhood to leave.
Keep watching the windows.
Evacuate now. Stay clear of the vehicle. Stay clear of the vehicle.
Sipos and the other officers listen for a moment. Then they start knocking on doors. Every unit facing 2nd Avenue, every apartment window with a light on. They tell residents to grab what they can carry and walk in the opposite direction of the RV. Some residents leave immediately. Some argue. One officer, on Sipos's audio, says the line that everyone would later remember from this body cam.
That's so weird. That's like something out of a movie.
Like The Purge?
Yeah.
At this point, Sipos and his partner are standing beside the RV, roughly 6 meters from it. They can hear the countdown clearly. They have not yet decided how seriously to take it.
Stay clear of the vehicle. Stay clear of the vehicle. Do not approach the vehicle.
The voice on the loudspeaker begins counting down. 15 minutes. Sipos steps away from the RV. 10 minutes. He and his partner continue clearing the street. 5 minutes. A resident argues about their cat. 2 minutes. 1 minute. The countdown reaches 0.
Fire medical down here just went off. Fire medical signal 10.
Everything on the body cam changes at 3 minutes and 52 seconds into the footage. Sipos is thrown forward. His camera keeps rolling. What it shows, in the seconds after, is a street he was standing on turning into rubble, glass, and fire. The person responsible was Anthony Quinn Warner, 63 years old, a quiet software consultant with no criminal record, no known extremist ties, and a fatal cancer diagnosis he had shared with almost no one. He had spent the previous weeks recording the evacuation warning in his own voice. No, in a woman's synthesized voice, loading his RV with explosive material and driving it into the exact block on which he intended to die. The FBI's post-incident report concluded that he did not want to hurt anyone else. He wanted the world to remember him. He almost took 6 officers with him. Officer Michael Sipos survived. So did every other MNPD officer at the scene that morning. Because of the 15 minutes of warning Warner had programmed into the loudspeaker, and because of the 15 minutes of door-knocking Sipos and the others managed to do inside it. 8 civilians were injured, 41 buildings were damaged. Anthony Warner was identified from a fragment of scalp recovered from the blast. The full motive, what he wanted the world to remember him for, has never been resolved. August 13th, 2018, Frederick, Colorado. Just before 2 in the afternoon, a Frederick police officer named Scott Coonrod pulled up to a 2-story home on Saratoga Trail. He was there for a welfare check. The friend who called was standing in the driveway. Her name was Nicole Atkinson. She had dropped her friend, Shanann Watts, off at that same house at 2 in the morning, coming back from a business trip.
How you guys doing?
Brother?
What's that?
Do you remember me?
Yeah.
Hey, man.
How you been?
Hi.
You Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going on?
So my friend,
Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant. She had a doctor's appointment that morning at 9. She never showed up. Her phone went unanswered. Her car was in the garage. Her shoes, the ones she wore every single day, were sitting right inside the front door. Officer Coonrod tried the doors, locked. He walked the perimeter, the back deck, the side yards, trying to see through any window he could. The house looked empty. Coonrod couldn't legally enter without consent. Nicole was on the phone with the husband. He was on his way home from work. 13 minutes into the body cam, he arrived. His name was Chris Watts. He was calm. Watts let everyone in. He walked the officer through the house room by room. The kitchen, the children's rooms, the little rainbow drawing on the wall, the upstairs bedrooms, the master bath, the closet. Every room, he cooperated. Every room, he pointed things out. Every room, he played the part of a man whose family had inexplicably vanished. Upstairs, in the loft, Coonrod's camera caught him closing his eyes, hand to his face. The picture of a man in shock. He knew exactly where his wife and daughters were. In the master closet, Watts stood among his wife's clothes with his arms out, explaining what she would have taken with her, what she wouldn't have left behind. Everything was still there. Then, halfway through the search, this happened.
I'll keep so all right. I don't want to make you nervous or anything, but I'll keep you posted. No.
The officer's next move changed everything. The neighbor across the street was a man named Nate Trenastich. Nate had a home surveillance camera, one that pointed directly at the Watts driveway. They walked over to Nate's house. Nate pulled up the footage on his living room TV. The date was August 12th, the night before. At 5:17 in the morning, a dark truck backed up to the front of the Watts house. It was Chris's truck.
But I get cars driving from this street. This is him at 5:17.
The body cam turned to Chris. He raised his hand to his head. He watched the footage of himself at 5 in the morning, doing something he never told anyone about. He said nothing.
On the outside.
Cars came through because I guarantee with the headlights, it picks up the headlights automatically.
And my Vivint said that at 5:27, my garage door was left open.
Detectives arrived. Watts's arms crossed. His answers got shorter. When they asked him what happened at 5:17 in the morning, he couldn't say. Officer Coonrod went back to the garage. He opened a black container on the workbench. He climbed into Shanann's white Lexus, the car she supposedly wouldn't have left without. There were no bodies inside that house.
Okay, well, give us a call, anybody, if you hear anything from her. Otherwise, I'm going to start putting together
just in case.
2 days later, on August 15th, 2018, Chris Watts confessed he had strangled his pregnant wife Shanann in their bedroom that morning. He had suffocated his 4-year-old daughter Bella and his 3-year-old daughter Celeste. He loaded their bodies into his truck at 5:17 a.m., the exact moment Nate's Ring camera had recorded him, and drove them to the oil site where he worked. He dumped Shanann in a shallow grave. He put Bella and Celeste inside 2 crude oil tanks. For 78 minutes on Officer Coonrod's body cam, none of that was visible. Watts stood in his kitchen, walked his own closet, watched himself on a neighbor's TV, and lied. So the camera caught everything, and nobody watching that day could tell. August 31st, 2023, Chester County Prison, Pennsylvania. A security camera caught this.
The other, and basically shimmying up that wall to the top of the roof. And Wolf, what's incredibly interesting about this is the prison warden says when he got up there, there is still razor.
The man crab-walking sideways up the corner of a brick prison wall is Danilo Cavalcante. He had just been convicted of first-degree murder for stabbing his girlfriend to death in front of her 2 children. The guard in the tower didn't see him. He climbed onto the roof. He dropped over the razor wire. And then he ran. A corrections officer walked into that same corridor 20 minutes later. She looked up. She saw an empty roof. Cavalcante was already a mile away, moving into the woods of suburban Pennsylvania. Nobody knew where he was going. What followed was one of the largest manhunts in Pennsylvania history. Hundreds of state, local, and federal officers, helicopters, horses, drones, search dogs, neighborhoods locked down, schools closed, reverse 911 calls warned residents to stay inside and lock their doors. Then, over the next few nights, something strange started happening. Cavalcante began appearing on cameras. Pennsylvania State Police. Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens gave daily briefings. Every day, the news was the same.
Food, and we'll come back to questions momentarily. Last evening, we had another sighting of Cavalcante by a resident in the area of Chandler Road, Pennsbury Township. Teams searched the area for hours, but were unable to locate him. An issue we did experience during that search illustrates some of the challenges our people are dealing with.
He was seen at gas stations, in backyards, crossing farm fields at night. Every sighting sent hundreds of officers running to a location that was empty by the time they got there. He changed his appearance. On day 9, Cavalcante broke into a garage. He came out with a stolen .22 caliber rifle with a scope. Pennsylvania State Police now had a fugitive murderer in dense woods with a weapon. They pulled out everything. Tactical teams from Customs and Border Protection out of El Paso, Texas, State Police Special Emergency Response Teams, a DEA fixed-wing aircraft 3,000 feet up, watching in infrared. Day 14, September 13th. Around 1 in the morning, over a field near South Coventry Township, the DEA plane saw this.
I think it was
The white hotspot in that circle is Danilo Cavalcante. A tactical team surrounded him. He didn't surrender.
People on the ground. In the end, they opened up saying that there was a false burglar alarm, but then there was a heat seeker that clearly found Cavalcante in the middle of the night. A storm broke out. They had to suspend the search, and then they resumed it again this morning.
I did not realize he was surrounded until that had occurred. That did not stop him from trying to escape. He began to crawl through thick underbrush, taking his rifle with him as he went. One of the Customs and Border Control teams, BORTAC, had a dog with them. They released the dog. Some of our PSP CERT members were also there. Had him.
He fought until the handcuffs went on. They led him out of the woods around 10 in the morning, cuffed, exhausted, scratched, and bitten. For the first time since he escaped, cameras caught his face.
But instead, now shirtless, brought back out, now shoeless and in a medical gown.
He is now serving life without parole at a maximum security state prison in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania State Police say they will make sure he never does the crab walk again. The prison where he escaped had one guard in a tower. That guard is no longer employed there. New Year's night, 2024. Just after 9:30 p.m., a call came into Miami Police Dispatch. It was the first of many. The location was Bayside Marketplace, a two-story waterfront mall on Biscayne Boulevard in downtown Miami. On any given night, it's a mix of tourists, restaurants, and street performers. On this night, something else was happening inside. A group of around 50 juveniles had started fighting inside the mall. Witnesses would later tell police the kids were armed with sticks and throwing fireworks at each other. Some fireworks were mistaken for gunshots. The initial call went out as an active shooter, and within minutes, this was the scene.
Warming Bayside Marketplace tonight.
That's where we find Local 10 crime specialist Bridget Matter live with what sparked this chaotic scene. Bridget.
And chaotic is an understatement. There has been a lot of activity in the last hour. This all started, according to police, with some sort of fight between juvenile groups that were armed with sticks.
Miami PD did something they almost never do. They called what's known internally as a Signal 3 White. Every officer in the entire city was ordered to respond. Dozens of cruisers stacked down Biscayne Boulevard with lights running. But while officers were arriving to break up the fight, dispatch was still ringing. Different people, different numbers, reporting something completely different. Not a fight, not fireworks, figures. Multiple callers said they had seen 8 to 10-foot humanoid figures walking through Bayside. Some said the figures were dark shadows. Some said they were dressed in dark clothing. All of them said they were too tall to be human. By the time officers reached the parts of the mall the callers had described, the fight was still going. But there was no one else there. Officer body cams caught what they walked into. Empty plazas, dark walkways, palm-lit courtyards with nothing moving. One officer stood alone in the middle of the mall's central pavilion with a rifle at low ready, looking for something none of them ever found. Officers walked the alleys behind the mall. They checked the back-of-house corridors. They swept the parking structures. There was no 8-foot figure. There were no shadow humanoids. There was nothing. What officers did find, they arrested. 4 teenagers, ages 14 to 16, taken into custody for the disturbance. Bayside was cleared, and Biscayne Boulevard reopened around midnight. Within days, the videos of the massive police response were going viral. Conspiracies flooded social media. Miami Police Department was forced to make a rare on-camera statement.
Clips that are going viral on social media right now. Just to address a few clips that are going viral on social media right now. First, our response to that big incident in Bayside Marketplace. What happened was there was about 50 or more juveniles that were shooting fireworks at people. There was also some looting going on. So officers that were on that scene were having a little bit of trouble containing it. So they called what is called a citywide 3, which every officer in the city responded. That's why you saw so much police presence for that call to contain that crowd. Now, there is now video going viral of 8 to 10.
Miami PD's answer explains the police response. It doesn't explain the callers. It doesn't explain why multiple people, unrelated to each other, phoned 911 at almost the same time and described the same specific thing. And it doesn't explain what became of whatever they saw. The teenagers were released to their parents. Bayside Marketplace reopened for business the next morning. The Miami PD file on the incident is closed. None of the callers who reported the figures have ever come forward publicly. Whatever they saw was gone before anyone in uniform got there.